Have you ever been held back from making some kind of decision because it just felt too risky? Maybe that decision would be to quit your current job. Maybe it's to start a side business or to get involved with that online course or whatever. Whatever it is, you've been, I don't know, it just feels like it's too risky. Well, hey, I want to encourage you in this video because I believe that risk is an essential part of your side business building journey. Hi, if you don't know me, my name is Richard and I'm an Australian living here in Hong Kong, and I love to talk about how we can build little side businesses that can be a blessing to our family and to whatever else we want to do with our free time. So I'd love to talk to you guys about what I think about with risk, because I think a lot of people are very worried about the risks of certain things. And you know, if I start that side business, what if I lose some money? Or what if I don't succeed? What if I fail? What will my wife think of me? You know, all this kind of stuff. These risks we can be considering can often stop us from stepping into something that's going to be really great for us and for our families. So I want to give you some honest truth about risk and your side business. The answer is that risk is a part of life. You're actually used to taking risks because you take risks all the time, right? Every time you get into a car, you're risking your life. Okay, if you're not driving, someone else is driving, you're putting your hands in the hands of that driver and anyone else on the roads. Everything that we do involves some level of risk. It's a part of life. I mean, you could eat something that you're allergic to and you didn't know, and you don't know what's going on in your body, and tomorrow is not guaranteed for us, right? Human beings, we're designed to live with a certain level of risk. There are no guarantees. And it's exactly the same with starting a side business or getting into building different side income streams. I have learned that there are no guarantees. And if I'm looking for guarantees, I'm going to stay exactly where I am. For example, when I was looking at which courses to do to learn certain skills, I wanted to study how to build a website, how to do SEO and rank websites. There was no guarantee that when I pay that $1,000 or whatever it is to buy that course, there was no guarantee that it was going to actually be good. Now, I did my research. All I could do was minimize the risk, but there's no such thing as no risk. You're gonna have to be willing to risk losing something. You're gonna have to be willing to maybe go through some pain, to maybe experience some problems, and maybe even lose a little bit of money. This is an essential part of life, risk. And we're used to it. We're used to operating in that sense. Every time we get on an airplane, every time we get in a car, we're used to risk. We don't know what's gonna happen to us every day. I leave the house, I haven't taken an umbrella. I don't know if it's gonna rain. There are no guarantees in life. We all take risks. So really, when it comes to you and starting that side business and launching off into exploring ways that you can build an extra income stream that's going to be a blessing to your family, there are a few questions that you need to ask yourself when it comes to risk. So I want to give you a few questions here right now. I've got 3. All right, you ready? Number 1, you need to ask yourself, what's my risk tolerance? Okay. We've already established that risk is a part of life. So we're all going to have some level of risk in what we do, and the same with every business opportunity. But I've got to work out, what is my risk tolerance? Like, what can I live with if this thing just absolutely fails spectacularly? Spectacular? You get what I'm saying. If this just all goes, what can I handle? What is too much and what is, not good, but I can live with that. And for me, when I was first starting my side business about 5 years ago, I was in a situation where me and my wife had decent incomes, and we were not paying rent where we were. We were actually living with family. And so we were able to save a lot of money each month. And we needed to do that in order to save a house deposit to buy a home in Hong Kong, which is super, super expensive. And so we're in a place where essentially we were building that, the house deposit. And so our savings were going up. And so in the bank account looked healthy. Now, it was all set aside towards buying a house. However, if we did have any emergency, it wasn't going to kill us. Like, I was still going to be able to feed my kids. And all it would have done would have set back that saving towards that house deposit. It would have, if my business had failed, it would have been embarrassing to probably anyone who knew what I was doing. It would have been a complete waste of my time. However, it was my free time, and I would say Netflix and video games, and there's a lot of other things that we could do that are complete waste of our time and have no upside. So I was willing to, essentially waste a bit of time. And ultimately the biggest thing, which was to delay being able to save for our house deposit. So when I looked at all of that, there actually wasn't a huge risk with me starting my side business. Now, I was not willing to risk investing in hiring staff. I was not willing to invest in buying equipment or getting a lease on a rental venue or an office space or anything like this. My risk tolerance was not there. And that's why the online opportunity is so amazing. This business model of, there's so many different business models within the online space, but being able to build a business, the fact that in 2024, you can build a business completely online, 40, 50 years ago, you couldn't do that. And this is a whole, the last couple of decades has been a whole transition in the world of how business can operate. The internet has changed everything, and it's made it possible to be able to start a business for $100 or something, and you go out there, learn a skill for free off YouTube, and then apply it, and you can start earning a bit of money on the side, and you can grow that over time. I mean, it's incredible that we don't need to put out this huge upfront fixed costs. We just don't have them in the online space. So that's why this is such a good opportunity. And it's why I started this channel, because I want to encourage more people to get out there and actually do it. It's not some scammy thing, make money online. Yeah, I get it. But it's about a new type of business model that's only been in the world these last 20 years or so. So look, I was not willing to put down all that money, but I was willing to spend a bit of time to maybe embarrass myself perhaps, and also to put a bit of money in towards starting that side business, which, by the way, there are free ways you can begin. So that was my risk tolerance. What's yours? Okay. If everything goes bad, what's really the worst thing that could happen? It's a good thing to think about. Number one. Now, number two, the second question you got to ask yourself is, what's the upside and the downside of this risk? Now, we already talked about the downside, but what's the upside? Because why would you take a risk if it didn't have a good upside? So obviously you want to look for things and opportunities, clients, niches that have high potential for gain and then low potential for pain, right? That makes a lot of sense, okay? High potential for gain, low potential for pain. I want a high upside and a low downside. And this may seem like, that's not real life. The higher the upside, probably the higher the downside. Well, that's not actually the case. In fact, all throughout your life, there are moments where you've been faced with opportunities and decisions where there is a huge upside and very little downside. And I think the best example would be asking my wife to marry me, okay? The downside of her saying no, the downside of her saying no to me and no to a relationship with me, obviously I would have been heartbroken, and it would have been emotional and all that stuff, and I don't want to think about the life that I would have missed out on because I love my wife and my family and everything that's come from that. But the truth is, there are plenty more fish in the sea. And while my wife is the only one for me at this point, hey, if you're single, there are many people out there. And whereas the upside, when you ask someone, out on a date, I mean, the upside's incredible. Imagine if that person ends up being your spouse and you spend the rest of your life building your life together and starting a family and all this. Like, the upside versus the downside of her saying no and you feeling embarrassed or you feeling silly. I mean, they're just some small emotional things that you're gonna get over, hopefully. But the upside is a whole completely different life. So my wife coming into my life and being a part of, my future has changed everything. There's a huge upside with that. So you've got to look for those opportunities that have disproportionate upside. And one day I'm going to make a video just about this concept. But there are opportunities like this and they happen all the time. We just don't really think of them or we don't notice them. For example, one recently that happened to me, or maybe 2 years ago or something like that, I received a kind of spam email. Right? Well, it wasn't super spammy, but I realized that it had been sent out to a whole newsletter list. Now, I had taken my son to a doctor a few years ago, and then a couple years later, I got an email from that doctor who was obviously emailing all their clients and saying, I've started a new clinic, and if you know anyone that needs help, I would love to help them. And I thought to myself, this is a doctor who is looking for patients, like they are looking for customers. And then I did a little bit of research and I looked up their keywords for their particular field. And it turns out that it was a very uncompetitive industry online. Like the websites that were there were not very strong, didn't look very good. And I thought I could outrank those websites. And so I just thought, hey, why don't I just email this guy back and say, would you take commission if I could send you referrals? And I did that and he replied immediately. We got on a phone call. He still was a little bit unsure, but I made him an offer that we couldn't refuse, that he couldn't refuse. Basically, I made him an offer that he wouldn't have to pay for anything and I would just send him clients and then he could pay me commission. And we actually now have a great working relationship and he pays me every month. I'm way over delivering on the amount of leads that I'm sending his business. It's been awesome. Now, all of that happened because I responded to an email, okay, a spam email, a junk mail kind of thing. And what is the downside? The downside is the email gets ignored. The upside is I have a monthly client for years. And by the way, that client has referred another client to me right now that we're working on a project together as well. So, disproportionate upside. You've got to look for these opportunities that have huge upside. Some of my investments right now, I'm looking at, and they have very little downside, but could potentially, really increase. And that's the kind of opportunity that we're looking for. Obviously, I know that seems really basic, and it's like, yeah, duh. But these opportunities are out there. You need to think about this, and not just in your business. I think you should look at this for all parts of life. For me, the opportunity of getting into YouTube, what do I lose? I lose a bit of time. I don't even lose, but I'm not even wasting my time because I'm learning skills. I've learned how to use all this stuff and try to make this look good and sound good. I'm learning how to put my words together in front of a camera and speak to a camera. Like, I'm learning a lot. There's not a lot of downside, even if I only have 30 subscribers. Yes, poor me, but I don't care. Hey, this is exciting. And what happens if I can meet lots of great people and actually help some people and have some influence online? Like, that would be so cool. Look for the disproportionate upside. Come on, stop worrying about that small amount of risk. And the last question that I think you need to ask yourself is this risk necessary? This is an interesting one because some risk is necessary. I've just said that risk is a part of life. There are no guarantees in your life, in your side business, in your health, anything. And we have to embrace some of those risks. But some risk is completely unnecessary, and we want to avoid those risks. So we want to ask ourselves, is this risk necessary? For me, there have been many times when I've thought about hiring a staff, like some staff, hiring someone in my business. And I've just thought, ultimately, to guarantee that salary and all of this with my current size of my business and wanting to keep my business, not too big that it's overwhelming, I just realized it's not worth it. In this season right now, and I'm not saying no down the road, but in this season, that risk is unnecessary. There's a lot of stuff that could go wrong with that. Now, I've hired freelancers, I've hired virtual assistants, and I think they're awesome. There are other ways to go around achieving what I want to achieve, but you've got to ask yourself that question: is this risk necessary? Like with starting a side business, I'm not going to risk a problem in my marriage. For example, in the early days when I was losing money as I was getting started, I kept my wife up to date with the whole process, and she knew that I was losing some money. I didn't want to surprise her with anything. If we lost money, which I have lost in the past, she knows about it. If I'm going to make a big financial decision, I'll share with her about it. Not because she gets upset. She's actually very releasing, to be honest, but because I want her to be involved. I don't want there to be a problem in our marriage over the money stuff, So, there are certain things I'm just not willing to risk. I'm not willing to risk a problem in my marriage over a side business. So, another thing on the business side of things is, at the beginning, I thought I needed contracts with my clients, but that's not necessarily true. In fact, right now, I don't do contracts with literally anyone, and they can cut me off at any time. But I've found if you over-deliver, they don't want to. They don't want to cut you off. If you're doing a good job, they want to keep you around. And so I decided that my contract would be over-delivering, that I'm just going to have a really good result for them, and they're going to want to keep me around. And then I'm not locked into something that I don't want to be in, okay? And especially when you're starting out and you don't really know how your business is going to look and you don't know about a lot of things, you don't want to be locked into a year contract for anything. So yeah, I would just recommend don't do contracts at the beginning. I'm not against contracts, but I just think, hey, is this risk necessary? So there you have it. 3 questions. Let me say them again. What's my risk tolerance? What is the upside of this risk? And is this risk necessary? Risk is a part of life. Embrace it carefully with wisdom and understand it. There are no guarantees in life. Be wise, but come on, be courageous. I hope you've been encouraged by this video, and why don't you check out this video about how you can make massive progress while other people are still being stuck in their side businesses. See you in the next video.